Hey guys, welcome back into CIO Insight here on the PulseNetwork.com. I am Tyler Pyron here with Eric Lundquist of Ziff Davis Enterprise. And, oh, well, you know, Eric, we're well aware of what's taken place over the last couple of weeks. Here on the East Coast, we've had plenty of interesting situations, both an earthquake as well as Hurricane Irene, which by the time it hit up here in Boston ended up being a tropical storm. But you know what? It makes an interesting point as far as business goes, because we've seen it. It can wreck a lot of things, not just, damaged trees coming down, but businesses as well.
Well, it's, disaster preparedness always comes up after a hurricane, after Katrina, after Irene. And you really need to say, how do you prepare business for disasters before? What are some of the aspects to look at it? And that seems to be what we're going to be talking about here with IBM.
Yes, we are going to be talking right now, as Eric just mentioned. We welcome into the show Rich Cocchiara, distinguished engineer, CTO for Business Continuity and Resilient Services at IBM. Rich, welcome into the show. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Without a question. So, kind of first off, did you happen to feel the brunt of any of these things on the East Coast this past week?
A little bit. New York got hit quite hard.
Right.
Fair
well,
enough.
Rich, we're coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, but also these hurricanes coming through, Hurricane Katrina, earthquake. Disaster preparedness always seems to come up after an event. So we're looking for some advice from you in terms of how companies should think about disaster preparedness before the event. What's some of the activities they should do? What's some of the tips that they should be looking for?
Great point, Eric. And really, being prepared for disaster is planning well before it occurs and understanding what you've got to do to ensure that your company can survive no matter what event should come across. One of the things that I recommend to my clients all the time is make sure you've got a really good backup. Validate that data. And more importantly, get that data off-site. Too often I've seen companies who do a backup, but they keep it on site, or they transport it to a local location not too far away from their production facility. So it doesn't do a lot of good if you've got an event such as a hurricane that takes out not only your primary facility, but typically the area around it. You need to get that data someplace safe and secure. We recommend to our clients, get it out, get it somewhere far away, put it in a cloud, a safe, secure location in the cloud, make sure that you can access that data and recover it from wherever you might be.
Well, two points there, Rich. It seems, you're talking about the cloud. I'm always curious, does the cloud, this era of cloud computing, make disaster recovery, disaster preparedness easier? And two, it's sort of like the fire drills at schools. Should companies, 3 or 4 times a year be practicing for disaster?
Eric, absolutely. I think the cloud does afford our companies a lot more flexibility than they've had in the past. Typically, when you wanted to store data far away from your primary location, it was typically because you were a large company. Cloud now gives even small and medium-sized companies the ability to store that information far away, be able to access it from multiple different locations. Basically, small companies now have the same capability that a lot of the larger companies used to have in the past. And the other thing that you've described was testing. We absolutely recommend that companies test their disaster recovery plan several times a year to make sure it does work, because invariably things are going to go wrong and you want to make sure that you're prepared for anything that might happen.
And it seems, we talked about the, get your data away, but you also have to consider your employees in all this, right?
Absolutely. Too often, people are always thinking about the technology, just the technology. Well, technology is not really good if you don't have the people who can run it for you or be able to access it. So your employees are absolutely critical, and you need to be thinking about your employees and what they're going to be going through during any kind of a disaster or an event. So think about your employees, how you're going to help them, and then also what you're going to be able to do to transport them to maybe your off-site disaster recovery location. So employees are critical, and let's not forget about the employees, but let's not also forget about their families too, because if you're only thinking about your employees during a disaster are going to be thinking about their families as well.
And what about just basically communicating with the employees? Phone lines go down, cell towers go down. How do you make sure that you have enough redundancy to be able to communicate with people?
Multiple ways of communicating with your employees: internet, phone, cellular, multiple different ways. You've got to test it out, try it out, make sure that you can communicate with them and automate as much of it as possible. Because remember, during a disaster, a lot of times the executives who are looking to be making those decisions are preoccupied. So you want to try to automate that communication so that when you do communicate out to your employees, it's clear, it's concise, it's well thought out, and you've already got it ready to go for when the disaster should occur.
So Tyler, don't keep all your servers in your own cellar, okay? When that floods, they're done.
Exactly. So, Rich, the one thing I find interesting, I mean, it's physically impossible for anybody out there to actually prepare for everything. I mean, let's be serious. As much as you prepare, what can go wrong will go wrong. I mean, we've seen that time and time again. After the fact, talk about, as far as being resilient, that action plan, as far as if something does go wrong, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be thinking about an action plan that's flexible. Don't be thinking about, well, I'm going to have an action plan just for a hurricane or just for an earthquake. You need to be having plans that are very flexible and you can piece together when you need them. So what we tell our clients is think as broadly as possible. Make sure that you've got those kinds of plans and what to do for like a hurricane, a flood, an electrical outage, but make sure that they're flexible so that you can cobble together new plans because, as you said, things will go wrong. You're not going to really have an event occur that's going to be pre-planned and exactly the way you expect it. So what we tell our clients is be flexible. Understand that things aren't going to go as you planned, so you might as well go ahead and add in some flexibility so that you can roll with the punches when they do occur.
All right, and kind of wrapping it up, Rich, I have to ask, you mentioned your clients, you told them all these things. How many of them actually really listened when all was said and done?
You would be surprised. A lot of our clients that we work with pay close attention to what we tell them. And what we found in the past is the clients that do work with us on a regular basis are the ones that typically are able to withstand events such as Hurricane Irene and such as the earthquake that occurred earlier in the week. Those are the ones that do fare quite well in an event. It's the ones that don't listen that sometimes have the problems.
There you go.
Excellent. Hey, Rich, really appreciate you jumping on the show today. Thanks so much for taking time out of the day.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great stuff. So there you go, Eric. Like you said, don't keep everything in the basement, right?
Well, spread stuff around, you know, and have a plan. And as you said, you can't plan necessarily for what it's going to be, but you can plan regardless what it is, that there's going to be some way to recover your IT systems.
Excellent. Great stuff. Big thanks to Rich Cocchiara of IBM taking the time out to jump on CIO Insight with us. You are watching the Pulse Network. We are What's Next Now.
The Pulse Network. It's social TV.